The 7 levels of power in boxing. Level 1, the natural puncher, Deontay Wilder. Some fighters are built in the gym, others are built by something you can't teach. Deontay Wilder belongs to the second category, a once-in-a-generation natural puncher whose power doesn't follow the rules of traditional boxing. From the moment he stepped into the ring, it was obvious that something about him was different. The sound of his punches, the reaction of his opponents, the sudden and violent endings, everything pointed to one thing. This is not normal power. Wilder didn't grow up with a long amateur pedigree like many elite boxers. In fact, he started boxing relatively late. But what he lacked in early technical development, he made up for with raw, explosive force that few fighters in history have ever possessed. His right hand became one of the most feared weapons in combat sports. It didn't need to be perfectly set up. It didn't need to be hidden behind combinations. Sometimes it looked sloppy, even telegraphed, and it still landed. And when it landed, fights ended. That's what defines a natural puncher at the highest level. It's not just about knocking people down. It's about shutting the lights off instantly, regardless of the situation. Wilder has been outboxed in multiple fights, losing rounds, struggling to control distance, even looking technically outclassed. But none of that mattered. Because as long as he was conscious, he was dangerous. 1 second, one opening, one right hand. That's all it took to completely flip a fight. What makes his power even more terrifying is how little effort it sometimes seems to require. Wilder doesn't always load up like traditional heavy hitters. There are moments where the punch looks almost casual, and yet the result is catastrophic. This is where natural power separates itself from trained power. It's embedded in timing, in leverage, in fast-twitch muscle fibers, and in a kind of instinct that can't be replicated through drills. Opponents knew exactly what was coming. They trained specifically to avoid the right hand. They built entire game plans around neutralizing it. And still, time after time, it found its target. That creates a different kind of pressure inside the ring. Fighters aren't just dealing with a skilled opponent, they're dealing with constant danger. Every exchange feels like a risk. Every mistake could be the last one. This kind of power also changes the psychology of a fight. Even when Wilder is behind on the scorecards, he's never truly losing. His opponents know they have to be perfect for every second of every round, while he only needs one moment. That imbalance creates tension, hesitation, and eventually mistakes. And against someone like Wilder, mistakes don't get forgiven. At level 1, technique can be flawed, defense can be questionable, footwork can be inconsistent, but none of it matters when the power is this real. This is the foundation, the raw, unpolished force that can't be taught, only harnessed. And Deontay Wilder is one of the purest examples of it the sport has ever seen. Level 2, the technical hitter, Gennady Golovkin. If level 1 is about raw, uncontrollable power, then level 2 is where that power gets refined into something far more dangerous. Gennady Golovkin is the perfect example of what happens when knockout power is built on flawless fundamentals. He's not just strong, he's precise, efficient, and technically sound in every movement he makes inside the ring. From the outside, Golovkin's style may look simple. There are no flashy combinations, no unnecessary risks, no wasted motion. But that simplicity is exactly what makes him so effective. Every step he takes is calculated. Every punch he throws is perfectly balanced. His feet are always in the right position. His hips rotate at the exact moment of impact, and his entire body works together as one unit to generate maximum force. That's what defines a true technical hitter. It's not about swinging harder. It's about hitting smarter. Golovkin's jab alone is one of the most underrated weapons in boxing history. For many fighters, the jab is just a setup punch. For Golovkin, it's a weapon capable of breaking opponents down round after round. He throws it with authority, snapping his opponent's head back, controlling distance, and slowly imposing his will. And because his fundamentals are so clean, even his simplest punches carry real damage. But what truly separates him is his ability to transfer energy. Every punch starts from the ground up. His feet plant firmly, his legs drive the motion, his hips rotate sharply, and his shoulders follow through. There's no disconnect in the chain, no wasted movement, just pure, efficient power delivered with perfect timing and structure. Another key element of Golovkin's technical power is his balance. He's almost never out of position. Even when he throws combinations, he remains stable and ready to defend or attack again instantly. This allows him to maintain constant pressure without overcommitting or exposing himself. Opponents can't catch him off balance, and they can't easily counter him. This kind of discipline also means he doesn't need to rely on wild knockouts. Instead, he breaks fighters down methodically. Body shots, jabs, clean right hands, each one adds up. Over time, opponents start to feel the accumulation. Their movement slows, their guard drops, and eventually the opening appears. And when it does, Golovkin doesn't miss. What makes his style even more impressive is how repeatable it is. Unlike natural punchers who rely on instinct and explosion, Golovkin's power is consistent from round 1 to round 12. It doesn't fade. It doesn't depend on chaos. It's built on fundamentals that hold up under pressure, fatigue, and high-level competition. This is the evolution of power from something unpredictable into something reliable and controlled. At level 2, a fighter understands that true knockout ability isn't just about strength. It's about positioning, timing, and efficiency. It's about making every shot count. And Gennady Golovkin mastered that better than almost anyone in modern boxing. Level 3, the conditioned finisher, Canelo Alvarez. Power can win rounds, and sometimes it can win fights. But at level 3, power does something even more dangerous. It lasts. Canelo Alvarez represents the evolution of a puncher who doesn't fade, doesn't slow down, and doesn't lose his threat as the fight goes on. He's not just explosive in moments, he's consistently dangerous every second he's in the ring. From the opening bell, Canelo fights with patience and control. He doesn't rush for knockouts. He doesn't waste energy chasing dramatic finishes early. Instead, he invests. Every punch he throws has a purpose, especially when it comes to attacking the body. His approach is calculated, almost surgical, as he slowly breaks his opponents down round by round. And that's where conditioning becomes the key difference. Many fighters can hit hard in the first few rounds. Very few can maintain that same level of power deep into a fight. Canelo can. His strength doesn't drop in round 6, 8, or even 12. In fact, that's often when he becomes most dangerous. While his opponents begin to slow, breathe heavier, and lose sharpness, Canelo is still planting his feet and delivering punches with full force. His body shots are a perfect example of this. Canelo is widely known for his devastating liver punches, short, compact hooks that land with precision and brutal efficiency. These aren't wild swings. They're perfectly timed, perfectly placed shots that take energy away from his opponent with every connection. Even when they don't immediately end the fight, they build damage that becomes impossible to ignore. You can see it happen in real time. Opponents start strong, moving well, sticking to their game plan. But as the rounds pass, their movement slows. Their guard drops just a little bit, their reactions become delayed, and that's when Canelo starts to take over. Not because he suddenly changes gears, but because he never left that level to begin with. Another factor that makes Canelo a true conditioned finisher is his ability to stay composed under pressure. He doesn't panic. He doesn't waste energy in unnecessary exchanges. His defense is tight, his head movement is efficient, and he controls the pace of the fight. This allows him to conserve energy while still applying constant pressure. It's a different kind of dominance, not chaotic, not rushed, but inevitable. At level 3, finishing ability isn't just about landing one perfect punch. It's about creating a situation where the finish becomes unavoidable. It's about building damage, controlling the pace, and staying strong long enough to capitalize when your opponent finally breaks. Canelo Alvarez has mastered that balance. He combines technical skill, physical strength, and elite conditioning into a style that wears fighters down mentally and physically. By the time the later rounds arrive, his opponents aren't just dealing with his power, they're dealing with everything that came before it. And when the moment finally comes, when the opening appears after rounds of pressure and punishment, Canelo is still fresh enough, strong enough, and precise enough to end the fight. That's what makes him a true conditioned finisher. Level 4, the precision striker, Naoya Inoue. Power is dangerous, technique makes it reliable, but precision turns it into something lethal. Naoya Inoue represents a level of striking where every punch is placed with intent, accuracy, and devastating efficiency. He doesn't just throw punches to land, he throws them to end exchanges, to break resistance, and ultimately to finish fights. From the very first round, Inoue operates with a level of sharpness that's hard to match. His eyes are constantly reading his opponent, their guard, their habits, their reactions. He's not just looking for openings, he's creating them. A slight movement, a feint, a shift in angle, and suddenly there's a gap. And when that gap appears, even for a split second, Inoue is already there. That's what makes him a true precision striker. His punches are compact, fast, and incredibly accurate. There's no wasted motion, no unnecessary wind-up. Everything is tight, controlled, and direct. Whether it's a straight right hand down the middle, a perfectly timed left hook, or a crushing body shot, every punch is aimed at a specific target: the chin, the temple, the liver, the most vulnerable points on the human body. And when he hits those targets, the effect is immediate. Inoue's power doesn't always come from brute force, it comes from placement. A clean shot to the right spot can do more damage than a wild, heavy swing. That's why his knockouts often look so sudden and so decisive. Opponents aren't just being overwhelmed, they're being broken down with precision they can't defend against. Another key aspect of his style is timing combined with accuracy. Inoue doesn't just throw when he sees an opening, he throws at the exact moment his opponent is least prepared. When their guard is transitioning, when their weight is off balance, when their focus shifts for just a fraction of a second, that's when his punches land the cleanest, and because they land clean, they land hard. What makes this even more dangerous is how efficient he is over the course of a fight. Inoue doesn't need high volume to dominate. He doesn't throw hundreds of punches hoping something lands. Instead, he picks his shots carefully, making each one count. This allows him to conserve energy while still applying constant pressure. It also creates a different kind of mental strain on his opponents. When you're facing someone like Inoue, you can't relax for a second. You can't afford small mistakes. Even a minor lapse in defense can lead to a knockdown, or worse. That pressure builds over time, forcing opponents to become more cautious, more hesitant, and that hesitation only creates more openings for him to exploit. At level 4, power is no longer just about strength or conditioning. It's about accuracy. It's about understanding exactly where to hit and having the skill to land there consistently. It's about turning small moments into fight-ending opportunities. Naoya Inoue has perfected that art. His punches are not just powerful, they are precise, calculated, and delivered with intent. And in boxing, there's nothing more dangerous than a fighter who knows exactly where to place the shot that ends everything. Level 5, the timing master, Juan Manuel Marquez. There's a moment in boxing where power, technique, and precision all come together, but something still separates the elite from the legendary. That final element is timing, and few fighters in history have mastered timing like Juan Manuel Marquez. Marquez wasn't the biggest puncher, he wasn't the fastest, he didn't overwhelm opponents with volume or physical dominance. What he had was something far more dangerous: the ability to strike at the perfect moment, not a second too early, not a second too late, exactly when it mattered most. That's what defines a true timing master. Throughout his career, Marquez built his style around reading opponents and anticipating their movements. He studied patterns, reactions, habits. He understood not just where his opponent would be, but when they would be there. And that allowed him to land punches that carried far more impact than they appeared to have. Because in boxing, a perfectly timed punch doesn't just land clean, it multiplies force. When an opponent is moving forward, stepping into range, or committing to their own attack, their body is vulnerable. Their weight is shifting. Their balance is momentarily compromised. That's the exact moment Marquez would choose to strike. And when he did, the result was devastating. The most iconic example of this came in his fourth fight against Manny Pacquiao. After years of rivalry, adjustments, and close battles, it all came down to one moment. Pacquiao stepped forward aggressively, looking to attack. Marquez read it perfectly. He planted his feet, timed the movement, and delivered a right hand that landed with absolute precision. The result wasn't just a knockdown, it was one of the most famous knockouts in boxing history. And what made it so powerful wasn't just the punch itself, it was the timing behind it. Marquez didn't need overwhelming strength, he didn't need to dominate every round. He only needed one perfect opportunity. That's the essence of level 5. The understanding that a fight can change in a single instant if you're patient enough, smart enough, and skilled enough to recognize it. His counterpunching ability was built entirely around this concept. He would often invite pressure, allowing opponents to believe they had openings. But in reality, he was setting traps, waiting, watching, calculating, and when the moment came, he struck without hesitation. This kind of style requires incredible discipline. It's not easy to wait under pressure. It's not easy to hold back when opportunities seem close. But Marquez understood that forcing moments leads to mistakes, and mistakes at the highest level can cost everything. So, he waited. And that patience made his power feel effortless, because when the punch finally came, it was always at the exact right time. At level 5, power is no longer about how hard you hit or how often you throw. It's about when you choose to strike. It's about understanding rhythm, distance, and opportunity at a deeper level. It's about turning your opponent's movement against them. Juan Manuel Marquez didn't just throw punches, he chose moments. And in those moments, he created some of the most unforgettable finishes the sport has ever seen. That's the true power of timing. Level 6, the psychological destroyer, Mike Tyson. By the time a fighter reaches level 6, power is no longer just physical. It becomes psychological. And no boxer in history embodied that better than Mike Tyson. He didn't just beat opponents in the ring. He often defeated them before the first punch was even thrown. From the moment Tyson walked into the arena, there was a different kind of energy. No robe, no wasted movement, no emotion on his face, just pure focus and intimidation. His presence alone created fear. Opponents could feel it, the crowd could feel it, and that fear changed everything. Because once fear enters the fight is already compromised. Tyson's reputation was built on destruction, explosive knockouts, relentless pressure, and violent combinations that ended fights in seconds. Fighters weren't just preparing for a tough match, they were preparing for survival. They knew that one mistake, one hesitation, could result in a brutal knockout, and that knowledge stayed with them. When the bell rang, many of Tyson's opponents were already mentally defeated. Instead of sticking to their game plan, they became cautious. Instead of taking opportunities, they hesitated. Their focus shifted from winning to avoiding damage, and in boxing, that's a dangerous mindset. Tyson thrived on that hesitation. His style was designed to overwhelm both physically and mentally. He would close distance instantly, slipping punches, moving his head, and launching explosive combinations with terrifying speed. Hooks to the head, uppercuts through the guard, body shots that took away breath. It all came in waves, and because his opponents were already tense and uncertain, they struggled to react. Every second felt like chaos. But what made Tyson truly different wasn't just his aggression, it was how he controlled the psychological pace of the fight. He didn't give opponents time to think, he didn't allow them to settle. From the opening seconds, he imposed his will, forcing them into a defensive state where they could never fully recover mentally. This constant pressure created panic. And panic leads to mistakes. Fighters would freeze, back up in straight lines, drop their hands or throw desperate punches just to create space. And against someone like Tyson, those mistakes were fatal. He didn't just capitalize on openings, he forced them into existence through fear. That's the essence of a psychological destroyer. Even outside the ring, Tyson's aura played a role. His interviews, his stare-downs, his reputation, everything added to the pressure his opponents felt. By the time fight night arrived, they weren't just facing a boxer. They were facing an idea, a threat, a nightmare they had been thinking about for weeks. And that kind of mental weight is hard to overcome. At level 6, power becomes more than punches. It becomes influence. It shapes how your opponent thinks, how they move, and how they react under pressure. It turns hesitation into vulnerability and fear into defeat. Mike Tyson mastered that level in a way few fighters ever have. His knockouts were devastating, but the real damage often happened before the fight even began. Because when a fighter steps into the ring already afraid, the outcome is almost inevitable. Level 7. The complete power fighter, George Foreman. At the highest level of power in boxing, everything comes together: strength, technique, timing, precision, conditioning, and mentality. This is where power is no longer one-dimensional. It becomes complete. And no fighter represents this level better than George Foreman. Foreman wasn't just a puncher. He was a force of nature inside the ring. From the early days of his career, it was clear that his strength was on another level. But what made him truly special wasn't just how hard he hit. It was how effortlessly he delivered that power. There was no need for flashy combinations or high output. One punch, thrown with intent, was enough to completely change a fight. Unlike many heavy hitters, Foreman didn't rely on speed. His punches weren't the fastest, and they weren't always hidden behind complex setups. But they didn't need to be. His timing, positioning, and sheer physical strength made every shot dangerous. Even blocked punches seemed to hurt opponents. His presence alone forced fighters into survival mode. That's what separates a complete power fighter from the rest. Foreman understood distance better than most. He knew exactly where to stand to maximize the impact of his punches. He would cut off the ring patiently, backing opponents up step by step, applying constant pressure without rushing. There was no panic in his approach, no wasted energy, just calm, controlled destruction. His jab, often overlooked, was a key part of his dominance. It wasn't just a rangefinder, it was a weapon. Heavy, stiff, and punishing, it disrupted rhythm and forced opponents onto the back foot. And once they were there, Foreman would begin to break them down with short, crushing shots that seemed to carry unnatural weight. What made his power even more unique was how relaxed he was while throwing. There was no tension, no overexertion. His punches looked almost slow at times, but the impact told a completely different story. That relaxation allowed him to conserve energy and maintain his strength deep into fights, and that's where his legend truly separates from others. Most fighters lose their power as they age. Speed declines, reflexes slow down, and explosiveness fades. But Foreman defied all expectations. When he returned to boxing in his 40s, many saw it as a novelty, a former champion trying to relive past glory. But what they didn't expect was that his power was still there. Not just present, but devastating. His knockout of Michael Moorer to reclaim the heavyweight title shocked the world. It wasn't built on speed or youth. It was built on patience, experience, and perfectly applied power. He waited for the moment, stayed composed, and when the opportunity came, he delivered a punch that reminded everyone exactly who he was. That moment defined the idea of complete power. At level 7, a fighter doesn't rely on one attribute. They combine everything into a style that is efficient, controlled, and consistently dangerous. They don't need to rush. They don't need to prove anything. They simply apply pressure, wait for the right moment, and end the fight when it comes. George Foreman mastered that level. His power wasn't just physical. It was intelligent, patient, and timeless. Whether in his prime or decades later, he carried the same ability to change a fight with a single punch. And that's what makes him the ultimate example of the complete power fighter.